Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lecture 14 of Phase B of this self-knowledge course. In this lecture, we will study Tantrism, that is, the subject of sex. Through this topic, we will come to understand why the great battle between white and black magicians has its roots in sexuality. The objective of this lecture is to help us understand the three types of Tantrism that exist, their characteristics, and how to distinguish one from another. Let us begin by defining what Tantrism is. Tantrism refers to the practice of sex, and Tantras are all those who have engaged in sexual relations. This means that every person who has had sex is a Tantra. What differentiates one person from another is the type of sexuality they practice. The great battle between white and black magicians originates in sex, because it is through sex that all powers can be developed. The bronze serpent that healed the Israelites in the desert, the serpent raised upon the staff, and the tempting serpent of Eden are in constant opposition. One is the Kundalini serpent, which rises through the spinal column, and the other is the inverted fire that descends through fornication. The first corresponds to white Tantrism, while the second corresponds to black Tantrism. Those who practice white sexual magic never spill the semen, whereas those who practice black sexual magic do. However, we must understand that there are three types of Tantrism: white, black, and gray. It is important that we learn to distinguish among them. Let us now examine each one individually. The transcendental fire develops only through white Tantrism. In this practice, there is neither orgasm nor ejaculation of semen. Through it, the Kundalini awakens, that is, the fire of the Holy Spirit. The purpose of this union is the creation of the existential bodies of the being. This practice must always take place between a man and a woman, with the phallus united with the yoni and without fornication. There are three fundamental requirements for a sexual union to be considered white Tantrism. It must always be governed by love, fidelity, and chastity. This practice should be carried out with a stable partner of the opposite sex. It should never be a relationship based on personal convenience, nor one in which hatred, resentment, or constant conflict exist. Both partners should strive to cultivate mutual respect and the development of genuine love. In the practice of white Tantrism, chastity must always be present. In other words, sexual energy must never be wasted. The key is the union of the phallus and the uterus, without the ejaculation of the sacred sperm. The method for practicing white Tantrism is as follows. Before beginning the practice, it is important to ensure that the bedroom where it will take place is free from negative energies and entities that could interfere with the work. To accomplish this, we perform the conjuration of Balilin and the magic circle of protection, which we studied in Lecture 7 of Phase A. Afterward, both partners should request assistance from their inner father and divine mother for the practice. This petition should be made sincerely, using one's own words and directing the request from the heart. Next, the couple proceeds to awaken the sexual fire through caresses and kisses until the female yoni is properly prepared and lubricated for penetration. Once this has been achieved, the connection of the lingam with the yoni takes place, that is, the union of the penis and the vagina. When the sexual connection has been established, both partners begin the transmutation of the sexual energy through a breathing process consisting of 3 stages. First comes the inhalation. Both partners inhale deeply and slowly through the nose, attempting to extend the inhalation to approximately 20 seconds. As the air is inhaled, one should imagine it filling the lungs and then being directed toward the sexual glands. The second stage is retention. The breath is held for approximately 20 seconds while imagining and feeling the sexual energy, like a golden thread, ascending from the sexual glands to the coccyx and then rising through the spinal column, vertebra by vertebra, until it reaches the point between the eyebrows. Once the energy reaches the point between the eyebrows, the air is exhaled slowly while prolonging the following sound. The breathing and visualization process is then repeated. Upon reaching the second exhalation, the following sound is pronounced. The procedure is repeated once more, and during the third exhalation, the following sound is emitted. This cycle should be repeated as many times as necessary to transmute all of the sexual energy. If at any moment the sexual potency diminishes, meaning the man loses part of his erection or the woman loses some lubrication, gentle movements, kisses, and caresses may be used to restore the potency and continue the transmutation process. The essential point is to conclude the practice without spilling the creative sexual energy, that is, without ejaculation or orgasm. During the first two initiations, corresponding to the regeneration of the first two solar bodies, the physical and the vital, the energy is raised only to the point between the eyebrows. This process of raising the energy to the point between the eyebrows is known as the bass clef. It receives this name because the path followed by the energy resembles the shape of this musical symbol, and because the bodies being regenerated at this stage correspond to those that vibrate with the lowest musical notes. During the creation of the higher solar bodies, namely the astral, mental, and causal bodies, the energy follows a different path. It rises from the sexual glands to the coccyx, ascends through the spinal column, reaches the point between the eyebrows, and from there descends to the heart. This process is known as the treble clef. At this stage, the bodies that vibrate with higher musical notes are created. The energy must be directed toward the heart because, just as the development of a physical embryo begins with the formation of the heart before the other organs emerge, so too the development of these higher embryonic bodies begins through the heart. In this case, the same process of inhalation, retention, and exhalation is followed, using the same three sounds. This procedure is repeated as many times as necessary to transmute all the sexual energy, always concluding the practice without spilling the creative sexual energy. It is very important to remain focused throughout the practice and not allow the mind to wander through distractions or unnecessary thoughts. The consciousness must remain attentive to the work being performed. Imagination also plays a fundamental role. For the wise, to imagine is to see and to create. Therefore, we must make a sincere effort to visualize the energy ascending through the spinal column. Willpower is equally necessary, for it is the strength that allows us to overcome desire. Some important recommendations should also be taken into account. Do not practice during the menstrual period. A period of 7 days should be respected. Do not practice during pregnancy or while breastfeeding. Practice only once per night, since the sexual glands work alternately, one each night, and a minimum of 20 hours should pass before working with the other. Each person should concentrate on their own sexual organs, since each one works with their own energy. After the practice, wait at least 2 hours before taking a shower. The room should be kept in excellent hygienic and sanitary conditions. Contraceptives should not be used, since they isolate and affect the creative power of the sexual energy. It should be remembered that this practice itself constitutes a natural form of fertility control because its success depends upon never reaching orgasm or ejaculation. The reproductive system and the spinal column should be in good condition. Always remember to make only gentle movements in order to avoid the loss of energy and prevent a sexual fall. Above all, cultivate patience and perseverance in order to control and eliminate the defect of fornication, which leads to the expulsion of energy through orgasm and ejaculation. The ascending fire possesses the power to awaken the chakras and open the 7 churches of the Apocalypse of St. John that exist within the spinal column. It guides us along the path of intimate self-realization. For this purpose, the only path that truly works is white Tantrism. Let us now examine what Black Tantrism consists of. In Black Tantrism, the awakening of the igneous serpent is sought in its strictly negative aspect. There is a connection between the lingam and the yoni, accompanied by magical rites and seminal ejaculation. According to this teaching, the sacred fire, instead of ascending, rushes downward from the coccyx toward the atomic hells of the human being. Black tantras reabsorb the semen after it has been spilled. The result is considered fatal because the semen, having been expelled, becomes charged with negative or satanic atoms. Upon re-entering the organism, these atoms acquire the power to awaken the Kundalini in a negative manner. As a consequence, the so-called tail of Satan appears, the abominable Kunda buffer organ, the second serpent that opens the 7 chakras located in the lower abdomen, known by the Mohammedans as the 7 gates of hell. Black magicians frequently teach that it is possible to awaken the Kundalini while spilling the sexual energy, without a stable partner, with multiple partners, through participation in orgies, homosexual practices, oral sex, anal sex, or masturbation. The result is that the spinal fire, instead of ascending through the medullary canal, descends toward the atomic infernos of the human being and crystallizes the tail of the Kunda buffer within the astral body. In this way, the individual gradually becomes internally a true demon. Let us now examine what Grey Tantrism consists of. Grey Tantrism is the sexual practice whose purpose is merely animal enjoyment, without any transcendent aspiration. This is the form of sexuality practiced by the vast majority of humanity. In it, people seek pleasure and the expulsion of their sexual energy without any knowledge of the power contained within sexual practice or sexual energy itself. As a result, they function only as batteries that are recharged daily in order to carry out their activities. Yet, because they continually fornicate, they constantly feed the subhuman entities that exist within themselves, namely the ego, as well as external entities that seek to steal human energy. These entities understand the power of sexual energy and use it for their own perverse purposes. It is important to understand that all gray tantras inevitably become black tantras. Every fornicator, even when unaware of black tantrism, is nevertheless considered a tantra and inevitably becomes a dark personality with the tempting serpent of Eden fully developed. This occurs because, with each act of fornication, the seminal envelope progressively darkens until the individual reaches a point where he becomes conscious of the power of sex and deliberately chooses to use it in the pursuit of power, prestige, material possessions, domination over others, and similar objectives. Remember that if we truly aspire to the intimate self-realization of the being, the only path that genuinely works is white tantrism. We hope that this lecture has helped you understand and distinguish the 3 types of tantrism. We invite you to join us for our next lecture, where we will study the organization of creation within the universe, a fascinating subject entitled The Ray of Creation. Thank you very much for your attendance. Until the next lecture.